Howdy, partners. Well, you say you're looking to learn how to play Deadlands Blood Drive? You came to the right place. Come on in, make yourself cozy, see if we can't get you through this. Hey YouTube, thanks for joining me here. Today we are going to talk about the Blood Drive setting for Deadlands, which is a Pinnacle Entertainment Group campaign. It's a plot point campaign. And basically in this video tutorial, I'm just going to do an overview today, but I do want to warn you there's going to probably be some spoilers in here. So as a player, if you're planning to play this campaign, it's not a good idea to watch this one, but I will have a video coming up soon that's just for players. So if you're a player, change to another video. All right, so what I wanted to do with this series, and it is a series, I'm planning on making 7 videos. This one will just be the overview, and then like I said, I'm going to have a player's guide. I'm also going to have one where we talk about the friends and foes, because there's a lot of NPCs, or extras if you will, in this setting, and I wanted to discuss them in more detail. I'll also break the sections. This book is broken down into 3 sections. And it's basically the way that the plot point campaign works is you've got section 1, a bunch of stuff happens, and then you move on to section 2. And so I wanted to do a separate video for each of those sections. And then the 7th video that I'm planning to make is top secret. Actually, it's basically up here in my mind, and I've got this grandiose idea and everything, but at the same time it hasn't been set in stone yet, so I can't promise that the 7th video will be made. So I probably shouldn't have mentioned it. We'll be watching this later if I don't end up making it, going, whatever happened to that 7th video? Anyway, let's just jump right into this. The Blood Drive campaign, we'll start with an elevator pitch. So let me just tell you what it says here on the back of the book, which makes the most sense because it's a perfect elevator pitch. Blood Drive is a cattle drive to hell, and back if you're lucky. Join one of the longest, most dangerous cattle drives in the Weird West. This twisted tale takes a posse of hard-riding drovers and their Texas Longhorns from the rolling hills of Texas, through the swollen streams in Colorado, the mountain passes of New Mexico, and the haunted prairies of Wyoming, and much more. The weirdness escalates along the way, slowly exposing our heroes to the true horrors of the Weird West. Despite the trials and tribulations along the way and the troubles, the posse has to keep moving them doggies north. If they can bring the herd safely to the end of the drive, the posse can walk away heroes and a little bit richer. So saddle up, partners, and join us on a Blood Drive. Blood Drive is a full-length campaign for Deadlands, the Weird West, suitable for characters of novice or seasoned rank. So what does all that mean? So first and foremost, Deadlands is a game that now at this level, the Weird West version, is based on the core rule set from Savage Worlds Suede, or Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. It recently came out, and then they've been recently putting out additional settings, and Blood Drive is one of the settings. It's one that I'm very excited to get underway. Actually, I'm starting a campaign this weekend, and so that's what made me think about doing this. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about is what you need to play, right? So obviously we need the plot point campaign, or what some people call a setting. This is soup to nuts. This is going to take the guys from novice all the way up as high as you want to go in levels. And so you need this. You can get the PDF version on Peg's site, or you can do like me and get the hardback. I like having a physical book in my hands. Along those lines, and having the physical book in your hands, what you also need, as I mentioned before, is Suede, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition rule book. Basically, these core rules are the physics of the game world, and you need them to be able to run, because it's going to be the foundation of everything that the game runs in. I recommend reading it front to back. I've read it a couple times, and also I keep different sections that I reread over and over again. On top of those two things, there is a core rule book set for Deadlands, and you need that because this has specific rules to the Weird West as opposed to just the physics of the game. So make sure that you get these 3 books. Again, they all come in PDF if you prefer that, or hardback. I actually have both for all of them because I do like the PDF to be able to look at that at any time on my iPad or on my laptop. But you need the Blood Drive setting, you need the Savage Worlds core rules, and you need the Deadlands core rules as well. Now, another thing that you're going to need, because Savage Worlds, if you're familiar with it, uses bennies. You're going to need some kind of benny token. I just use the bennies that came because I bought the box set of Deadlands, which comes with a bunch of different stuff, including the core rules and everything, but it also comes with some nice bennies. Poker chips will suffice. I've seen people even just use pennies. Anything that can sort of show that a player has bennies. You need a minimum of about 25 of those. I actually prefer to have double that just in case. I like to hand out the bennies. I'm a nice GM. The other thing that you need is an action deck. Now, you don't need the Deadlands action deck, but I love it because it's oversized. And so to me, that's really handy. But also the Deadlands pack comes with really cool card backs. And then each of the cards is themed in like a Weird West kind of way. So you can see they're actually pretty cool, right? So you do need a deck of cards. Like I said, you don't need the oversized action deck, but I highly recommend it. If you don't use an oversized deck, I think you should get something themed, you know? Don't just go with bicycle rider backs or pinnacle cards or something like that. Instead, don't use pinnacle cards. Instead, get a cool, it's hard to find a Western themed one, but check this deck out that I found. It's the Mandalorian. So you get a cool deck of cards, and that way, when you're dealing the cards out to folks, it just kind of gives them a good feeling about the Wild West atmosphere and everything. That's just my thoughts. But anyway, you need bennies and you need a card. The other thing, now some people do play Theater of Mind, and I know that that's actually a popular thing in tabletop RPGs. I don't personally do that. So I use a map, and Savage Worlds and Deadlands run off of the regular 1-inch square. So these maps are, I mean, this is basically a huge tool that you're going to use all the time. So I highly recommend that you get a mat that you can roll out on your table, and you make it get the dry erase type so that you can even write things on there and everything. And if you are doing a map, you might want to consider miniatures, right? 28 millimeter miniatures is the standard size there. And these guys were actually made from Hero Forge. I have a 3D printer, so I made them on Hero Forge and then just downloaded the STLs and printed them out. Now, you don't have to have miniatures, but one thing that Peg has done, which is really cool, because the problem is there's not a lot of Weird West miniatures available unless you're going to Hero Forge to make your own, and you probably don't want to make every single thing that you're going to have on there. But what Peg has done is they create these pawns, and pawns are basically miniatures, but they're flat miniatures, right? So you get tons of these pawns that can be player characters. They also have monsters. They have cattle, right? And horses. All kinds of things that are would be Wild West related. So if you weren't familiar with that, I highly recommend you at least check out to see what kind of pawns they have available. These are really cool. They have a flat base and then just a cardboard that slides into the base. And I find them very handy, especially, like I say, for the Weird West. Another thing that you need but you don't necessarily have to have. What I have is a set of dice. Now, with the Deadlands kit that I got off the Kickstarter, I got this really nice dice tray. I recommend a dice tray just because it's much easier for keeping your dice handy and also not rolling off the table. Not to mention the Deadlands kit that I got came with metal dice, and I don't recommend rolling these on a wood table. Instead, use a dice tray. But regardless, you are going to need a standard set of dice, right? We know, like the D20, D12, D10, D8, D6, D4. And then you're going to want an extra D6 at the very least, because with Savage Worlds, you have what's called the wild die, and it's an extra D6. If you get them from Peg, they've got really cool designs on them, really nice. I love, like, for instance, this Deadlands die that has the Longhorn on there. And then just a lot of neat things that you can get out of the Savage Worlds. I recommend, like I said, a dice tray and a set of dice. If you're GMing, you might want to get a couple sets of dice, because you never know when a player is going to show up without dice. Another thing that's nice to have, but not a must-have, is this is a Deadlands version of it, but it basically keeps track, because it's got a number on there that you spin to, keeps track of a number of things. You can keep track of ammo, you can keep track of power points for your spells and everything. And then another nice to have are these templates, and actually Peg has them for free that you can print out. But basically for spells, right, you've got your cone shape here, and you can see I actually wrote on mine, I wrote inches so that you can easily measure things. And then you've got your blast template, which is the circles, small, medium, and large. These are really handy, so I highly recommend that at the very least you print the templates off of the site. You just hover them over your game and it'll show you the area of effect for the spell. Another thing that I kind of consider essential, but doesn't have to be, is a GM screen, or Marshall screen in this scenario. This is the Deadlands one, and obviously Savage Worlds, when you get the box set, it also comes with one, and that's fine. The thing that I like about the Deadlands version is it has dealing with the devil over here, which is something that you are going to run into fairly often in a Deadlands game. And it's handy just having it on there. I highly recommend that you put your, as a marshal or GM, you put your stuff behind a screen anyway, so that they can't see all the monsters that you've got lined up for them and all of that stuff. So that's another thing that's not necessarily a must-have, but I recommend having it. Another thing that I recommend having is the Weird West Companion, which is just additional information that you can get for the Deadlands game. It's also available in PDF, and it has a ton of stuff that can enhance your game, additional edges and things like that. Also comes with a one-shot, a nice one-shot adventure, the Horse Eater. Another handy thing that you get with the Deadlands box set is this Western States map. And the reason why I say that's handy is because basically all of your settings that you're going to be running are going to be run in somewhere in this area. And it's just a handy thing. It really helps the players to immerse in the game too, to see maps and things like that that kind of enhance their gameplay. So I recommend that. Along those lines, and in talking about the map that you can set out, Peg also has map packs, which are, the Deadlands versions are Western based. So these are really cool and handy for just a quick, if you want to throw down an ambush site or something, it's just a really nice way to get a quick one of that. And they've got a bunch of different ones. They've got town packs with cemetery, a grand saloon, all kinds of Western based maps and stuff. Let's see, what else could we do when we're talking about terrain? Oh man, my favorite foreground. This is a locomotive here that hasn't been put together yet. By the way, caveat, you have to build these things and it's fairly complicated. However, as you can see, it is well worth it. The problem is
It looks to me like Foreground is either going out of business or just closing their doors for some other reason. But on their website, it says that this summer they're going to shut down. But these are fantastic, right? So you've basically just get a model of a building, and these are kind of Wild West-esque buildings. And you see we've got like a staircase that leads up to a door over there on the side. You want to talk about immersion. This is a great way to immerse your player characters into the game, because seeing this out on a terrain map and everything is just fantastic. It just really kind of enhances the game. Again, this is not a must-have. This is an added expense, and like I said, it takes time to build it or whatever, but I absolutely love immersing my players into the game, and I think that that really helps. Speaking of immersion, here's another thing. Totally don't need, came with the box set, I think is cool as heck. And that is the Marshal's badge. Everybody knows you're the GM anyway, so it's not necessary, but talk about immersion. You can wear that badge when you are running the game. And then the last thing of not need to haves, but definitely nice to have, are Pinnacle has provided power cards and status cards. Now this one's really important, because if you use the optional rule to run an adventure deck, you're going to want to get the adventure deck. Again, they have it in PDF form. When you get Deadlands in the box set anyway, it gives you some additional adventure cards that are related to Deadlands. But this is an invaluable resource, right? If basically adventure cards are just a fantastic add-on to the game. My players love them, so we definitely roll with them. So it's good to have that adventure deck. So in a nutshell, that's the things that you're going to need to run Blood Drive, and some nice to haves as well.
I forget to mention one more thing. If you're trying to immerse your players, right, and working on terrain and things like that, another thing that you can do is the Marshal, is you can dress up. And the cool thing about Deadlands is it's not like D&D or something like that, or some fantasy thing where you would have to have some crazy outfit. I mean, heck, this stuff was all in my closet. Had my boots for line dancing. I don't even know why I got hemp rope, but sure is handy. 1858 Army. You don't have to have a ball and cap revolver, by the way. It's really cool, you know what I mean? It adds a little to the flavor. If you or anyone in your group is averse to guns, then maybe a toy gun, or maybe no gun at all. But like I say, it doesn't take much to put on a white shirt, some jeans, and cowboy boots, and then obviously if you got your Marshal badge. So hopefully this has been helpful, this part anyway, and let me know what you do in the comments below. Let me know what you do for your games. All right, let's take a look inside Blood Drive. This will be just a quick overview. First thing, I really love that right in the opening here, normally where you would see just a blank page or dark blank page, they've inserted a map. And this is handy as heck, right? I mean, at any time you can just flip your book open and you've got access to the overview map. Just one of the things that I love. Now let's talk about a pet peeve. It's minor, but I like to see chapter numbers, and they didn't have them. No big deal for me just to handwrite them in there, but I would have liked to see that. As I'm learning a setting or whatever, I get pretty familiar with the chapter numbers, and I just like seeing it in the contents. That's me. Also would have loved to have seen Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 titled, because there's a bunch of chapters here, and these are where the different sections start. Anyway, I don't know. So the Blood Drive was written by John Goff, and Deadlands obviously created by Shane Hensley and Pinnacle Entertainment Group. But let's see what we've got going on here. Now, I'm not going to read everything to you guys. Obviously, there's a lot here, plus, you know, this is copyrighted material. But I did want to just point out, like, for instance, the art that we have all throughout the book. Fantastic. I mean, there's just an awesome job of the artwork here. But so essentially you get this introduction, right? And in the introduction, and by the way,
This video series is not a replacement for you reading the book front to back, and that's what I highly recommend. This is more just like something that can kind of get you diving in and getting an idea of what it is and everything. It's not an excuse to not read the book. But let's look at what we've got going on here. So one thing that they recommend is if you want a more traditional Western, right, to start with, where you're not going to have magic and things like that available, some of the things that would go along with the Weird West, then you can choose some archetypes. And by the way, Deadlands came with archetype cards. If you have those, that's great. But they recommend the Bounty Hunter, the Cowgirl, the Muckraker, Native Scout, Sawbones, and Vaquero from set 2. If you have access to set 3, you can try the Wrangler, the Buffalo Hunter, Gun for Hire, Ranch Hand, Desperado, Drifter, Tin Horn, or Camp Cook. All of these start out mundane, you know what I mean? They're just basically no magic involved in stuff. They're your typical cowboy style, cowgirl style characters. And then obviously if you want to shift more towards opening up completely magical and stuff, there's plenty of other archetypes as well. So part 1, and part 1 is titled Bad Night on the Good Night. And I've highlighted sections that I'm just going to go over with you guys real quick to give you a quick overview of what part 1 is. And by the way, in this introduction, that's what this section is. It's a quick overview, so read it. But the party hires on to help Bill Sutter and his niece Abigail, Abby Morton, of the Lazy S Ranch, drive a herd of Texas Longhorns north. So you're going to have to figure out a way to get your party, right, session 0 or whatever, what makes them go to join up with the Lazy S Ranch and drive a herd of cattle. That's the whole idea behind that. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we break down part 1. There's a renegade shaman, right? He's named Tosari, I don't know. You pronounce it however you want, and then don't forget how you're pronouncing it. Turns out Bill Sutter is the last surviving member of the posse that brought the raiders to justice a few years back, and the shaman wants vengeance. Perfect setup for part 1, right? We've got this renegade shaman, and he's out to get the guy that basically the posse or the players have joined on to help Bill Sutter. Tosari follows and catches up with the heroes in an ambush a few days later. Who doesn't love an ambush? This is a perfect opportunity for the role-playing game really to shine. A good ambush here. And the idea is that a few nights later, a falling star turns out to be Wasatch Rail spy with a rocket pack. So this is cool too, right? I mean, the players maybe think that they're seeing a falling star. It's actually a spy who's up with a rocket pack escaping from a secret government base at Roswell. The spy doesn't make it, but the secret plans found on his corpse are the start of a whole passel of troubles that plague the drovers throughout the campaign. Boom. We've got something that's going to carry on throughout the entire campaign. It's something that we found, and it's something kind of super secret with a spy being in there. Makes it exciting for the players. Next up is a run-in with a stubborn landowner plagued by a bandit named Galt. So more opportunities to kind of keep the players going, having a bunch of, you could think of these things as one-shots along the way, but they're all connected. The big finale takes place in the bloody battle of Galt's Gulch. So there's a big finale for part 1. And it's going to be this big bloody battle. And that sounds awesome. Who doesn't love part 1 here? All right, so part 2. Now your players have leveled a few times because we've gone through a bunch of sessions and stuff. And they're on High Plains Drovers. Bill Sutter, the guy who is running the Lazy S Ranch Drive, decides to press on for Wyoming territory, and set up a new ranch. Okay, so this is just information for the players, but basically going to kind of sew into the story. They're quickly caught up in a game of intrigue between Empire Rail and Wasatch Rail. Remember, we saw the spy from Wasatch Rail back here in part 1, so now there's like connections going on, and there's these 2 railroad companies that are obviously, there's some intrigue, right? And this would make the role-playing game exciting, is that sort of thriller aspect. But Empire Rail and Wasatch Rail are they're basically enemies. And so there's something going on in a game between them. The next leg of the trek takes the crew of the Lazy S through the Sioux Nation. Relations are tense. However, the heroes and their herd are driven in the shelter of a dilapidated and abandoned fort full of forlorn settlers. The posse discovers a band of plague vampires hiding among the settlers and hopefully send them to their final reward. Vampires. There it is, folks. The perfect monster for a role-playing game. Not to mention, in the Weird West, vampires are fantastic, but they fit in anywhere in any campaign. Next up is a harrowing trip through the Wind River Canyon and an encounter with a ghostly remnant of the Great Rails Wars. So we're going to reveal more things to the players about this connection between Wasatch and Empire. We're just going to start bringing things together, but we're only in part 2, so it's not a finale brought together, but they are finding out a lot more information. You can see the mystery building and the information that's leading to it. Then part 3, Range War. Now we're wrapping up our campaign in the last several sessions. Bill Sutter and crew finally reach the southern Wyoming, and tensions mount, and several of Sutter's ranch hands are killed. Bill takes sick. His diseased wolves stalk the herd, and Logan's men cause constant trouble and sabotage. So essentially, at this point in part 3, stuff is really starting to get crazy. Sutter's sick. You guys are being stalked by diseased wolves. There's constant trouble and sabotage among the people. This is a great time for building up, because you know that finale is coming here. The real threat is once again Tasari. So all the way back at part 1, right, is when we first were introduced to him. But the shaman perished back in the nations and arose as a pestilent poxwalker. This is a fantastic addition to the story as well. So now we've got Tasari, basically our ultimate bad guy from the beginning, who's just been following and plaguing us throughout. And now here he is. He continues to be a problem. The adventure ends with a final confrontation between the Lazy S and Northern Star and the latter's secret weapon. Boom. We got something really exciting here, right? Another mystery that we have to uncover, but essentially the Northern Star secret weapon is a resurrected devil bull. If you guys remember from the cover, look at that artwork, but also just imagine running into that out on the high plains. So this devil bull is controlled by one of Logan's hands and a brilliant but deadly mad scientist. And that's the final battle that's going to complete the whole thing. This is a fantastic plot point campaign. And as you can see, they've just done a great job with the artwork, the layout, and everything. One thing that I did want to point out before I wrap today's thing is, notice what I did with the tabs. I like to mark where my parts are, 1, 2, and 3, and then these are chapter markers. And then also this F back here is friends and foes, because they have an entire section. We're not going to go over that today, but I will have a separate video that is going to go into detail on all the friends and foes that are in the game. That's the overview.
Thanks for dropping in, partner. I hope you come back again. Definitely, if you dig, like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't ever miss an episode. Also, please comment down below. Let me know what you think of this, and also what your experience has been. See you on the other side of the sunset.